darling," she said. "Everyone in the village missed you, and they are overjoyed that you have come home. The roses are from Robert, you know, the young groom at the hall. They're from his own garden. The asters are from Miss Jennings, your old school teacher. The pears were from Mr. and Mrs. Bolt, the grocers. And, of course, our nice butcher sent a special joint, perhaps a little more than we ought to get." She broke off with a chuckle. "Oh, Mummy, aren't people nice?" Christie cried, running from one of these touching little offerings to another like a child at Christmas. "Look, a dear little carved cradle from old Smith, and just look at these handkerchiefs. They must be from Susan Drew, who made my one and only evening dress so well." Her eyes eagerly scanned the cards attached. "Welcome home, Miss Christie," or "Do come and see us soon, Christie," and other notes from friends and acquaintances of whom she had seen so little in these past years. She was deeply touched. But in spite of her pleasure and emotion, she could not help feeling a tiny stab of disappointment, for there was no word, no sign amongst these lovely things from him, Philip. And much as she had looked forward to coming home, to spending the next few months' leave with darling mother and father, to seeing all her old schoolday friends again, she had so longed to see Philip. Surely he's bound to be home now on holiday as it's August, she had told herself. Even doctors must have holidays. And he had not forgotten about her, for she had had a long, interesting letter from him recently from Augsfell, where he was one of the house physicians at a big American hospital, a wonderful clinic in the Austrian mountains. He had started that much-read letter, "My dear little Coppertop," which was his pet name for her, carried over from childhood days, and although there was little else that could be called personal in the rest of the letter, he had ended with the words, "Love as always to my favourite redhead, and I hope to see something of you when I come on holiday this summer. Try and pass all those finals by then for a very special reason which I will impart to you when I see you. Ever yours, Phil." How often had she read and reread those words, dreaming about the wonderful times they'd had together as children. The day when he had first confided in her his plans to become a doctor, when, in her own heart, she had resolved to follow him along the path of helping humanity by becoming a nurse herself. She had been 16 then, Philip 19. It was on that day he had first kissed her, the only time, and had told her to hurry up and grow up because one day he was going to need a wife. "All the best doctors have wives," he had said. Of course, that was a long time ago, and when she and Philip had met again in the middle of his training, she had found him changed. He had been serious about his work and ambitious and strangely grown up, and their relationship had lost a little of its intimacy, its easy comradeship. Philip had become a man while she was still a schoolgirl. But in time she too had said goodbye to childhood and gone to London to start her training. Since then she had blossomed into womanhood. She and Philip had met occasionally, not very often, for their brief holidays so seldom coincided, but after he had qualified and had left for Austria, she had felt a return of this old friendliness, even a new awareness of each other. Christie had discovered the last time she saw Philip, which was a year ago, that he had been attracted to her. She had had some experience in London, where young medical students had fallen for her physical attractions as much as for the sweetness and generosity of her disposition. But although she had been flattered by their attentions and enjoyed spending her day off with one or another of these young men, deep in her heart she had known that it was always Philip she loved, and she had kept aloof from other embraces, saving all that was loving and responsive in her nature for him. Watching the disappointment cloud the young face of her daughter, Mrs. Paige gave a little smile. She knew her Christie too well to be mistaken about the reason for the shadow in the hazel eyes. "I forgot to tell you, Christie, but Sir John Vereker sent word from the hall last night Philip would be home on a brief visit this weekend. Sir John had heard you were coming, too, and thought you might like to have dinner with them tomorrow evening." The face Christie now turned to her mother was radiant. Her cheeks were hot and pink. "Oh, Mummy, that's wonderful!" she cried excitedly. "Oh, now everything is perfect. This is the most marvellous welcome home I've ever had. In fact, it's the happiest moment of my whole life."